What's up, guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Void Horror Podcast. My name is Alex, and today we're going to be doing a spoiler-free review of Cube from 2021. It's a Japanese remake of the original movie from the 90s, so let's check it out. So this is a remake of the original movie that Vincenzo Natali did, who has done a lot of different movies that I've seen. He's very good at like a vibe and an atmosphere on a very indie level budget. He's done movies like Nowhere, where a bunch of guys get trapped in a void of nothingness. He also did Cypher, about a guy who gets turned into a CIA sort of action star Bond type character, which was really good. He also did Splice, In the Tall Grass on Netflix, and many more. Fast forward to today, 2021 technically, when Japan decided to make this movie, which is pretty much the same movie in a lot of ways, or at least very familiar to the original one, only they do a couple of new things and with the lore and sort of why this is sort of happening. I wouldn't say that it's so vastly different that you're going to be like amazed by it, but it's also not the exact same carbon copy thing. But again, the vibe and the feel is going to be there. I think all they did really is sort of switch and mix a couple of characters together and sort of their motives as to why they would be like from the original. I don't want to spoil it, which characters they mish and mash together, but there are about 2 or 3 characters that have variations of other characters that were in the original movie. A lot of familiar situations and things that they do in the movie, how they figure out what the hell is going on in this giant mysterious box. If you're not sure what the story is, I'll give you that now, because if you've never seen the original, well, hell, maybe you might want to check that one out and then watch this one. But essentially, the story of this plot is a bunch of strangers wake up in the middle of a cube, and inside the cube is a door on the floor, a door on the ceiling, and 4 doors all the way around on every wall. And every time they go through a different door, it's like a different color. There's sometimes traps in these places that will kill people instantly. And yes, we do get an initial start of the movie with one of those traps killing somebody right off the bat, just like in the original Cube movie. Is it as good? Not so much, but it doesn't look terrible. We do get sort of the archetypes that you have from the original film, where they're kind of, there's some good and some bad, and some people who are losing their minds and coming to conclusions about other people ahead of time, and it's sort of, being locked into this position where you're not sure how to get out of this, technological nightmare. It's not as well spoken as far as like the writing in this is not as hard hitting, I think, than the original movie. Although the original movie, it has some flaws in some of the characters a little bit. Some of them are a little far-fetched to believe, but I think they do a better job in the original one of sort of building up those characters and sort of how they speak. Like some of the writing in the original was just really had some pretty good, like memorable quotes and stuff that it would say in the film. But yeah, this one, the new one, has a lot of characters kind of mishmashed together, and it doesn't really seem to hold the weight as much as the first movie does. There are a few scenes of death, but didn't really feel like the cube was all that scary, while I was watching it. Now, is this because I'm watching a remake and the original is so much better? Probably because the remake is much better and they take the time to sort of smell the roses. They do give you kind of a sense of progress in the film in this new one, but it all kind of just feels like they're just trying to get to the end of the story instead of kind of like really smelling the roses and kind of getting the viewer into the atmosphere and the real tension of like what is actually going on. The mystery in the original movie is really what sells it. The sci-fi, real hard sci-fi, gory, well written. So it's just really good on a budget. It's not exactly the most expensive film, but not exactly the most cheap either. But this one has a semi-decent budget. They do obviously use a lot of CGI, just like the original one did. I think they also kind of have a little bit of a different understanding, and maybe it's just a cultural thing that, you know, the characters have and do different things that I wasn't expecting. Their motives seem a little weird at times and kind of far-fetched. Again, there's a lot of familiarity in the scenes. You're going to feel familiar, even if it's not the same characters, but sort of archetypes of those people. I feel like the character work could have been done a lot better, but, you know, they wanted to kind of put their own twist on it and kind of make it their own, which I can admire, but it just didn't really pull it off for me. There are a lot of dramatic moments in this film that kind of go on for a very long time, and I think they were a little unnecessary at times because I really didn't feel that the movie spent enough time with that character for me to sort of develop that sort of camaraderie or care about each of these characters. You know, they try to do it in some sort of various ways, but it's just kind of like assumed that you're roped in rather than kind of making you 100% in on the characters and their struggle and like how the dynamics between all of them work. So is it going to be a movie for you? I mean, if you enjoyed the first one, as long as you keep your expectations ultra low and don't expect anything to be too like earth shattering as far as change. But yeah, it's not a bad watch. You know, I finally got to watch it. It's on Screenbox. You can check it out on Screenbox for your subscription if you want to check it out. This movie is very low on the remake scale. I really doesn't feel like there's enough to kind of warrant a change enough to really make it, you know, to do a remake. But then in the same regard, maybe people in Japan just never saw the Cube movie, which, you know, nowadays it's like our cultures are all mixing and, you know, there's not any one style or anything. So everybody's seeing and hearing all the same music, all the same movies. It's just one of those things now. But there are some movies that are still struggling to come to the US to get US distribution. And it seems like Screenbox is kind of savvy to that. And they're picking up on a few things that might not have made it over here. Unfortunately, I would probably have to give this movie about a 5 out of 10. It's very, if I were to give it anything over a 5.5, it'd only be because it feels a little bit newer, but it is just kind of stripped away from all the goods that you got in the original movie. And I feel like the characters are much better in the original movie as well. So it's like, you know, you might as well just watch the original at this point over this one. Unfortunately, it's not a banger, but, you know, maybe you want to see it just to see what it's like compared to Cube because you're a huge Cube fan. I understand it. You're not going to listen to me, and it really doesn't matter what I think anyway because everybody's opinion's different, right? But it is definitely heavy on the drama, and there is some characters in the movie you're going to get some backstory on that I don't really know if it was effective in kind of helping the whole movie, at least not by the end. There is some after credit stuff that you might want to catch in the end, by the way, so if watch the credits roll with the cool fancy graphics, and then after that's done, it'll show you a snippet of one of the characters or something that's going on, and then you'll go, oh, okay, so it's this, and you know, the ending is okay. I didn't think it was that great, so I wish I would have liked it more, but it's interesting to see a remake of a movie that I really liked back in the day. But have you heard of this movie? Did you know it was out? Were you waiting for Screenbox to release it? Have you seen it in Japan, or maybe you had a VPN and watched it on one of the streaming services or something? I would love to hear what you think in the comment section down below. But other than that, thank you so much for stopping by. And as always, long live the void.